Once upon a time, a man lived on the edge of a vast forest. He'd seen fires before, creeping slowly, then spreading fast, threatening everything around them. So he prepared. He learned every technique to stop a blaze. He cleared brush, dug trenches, and kept water buckets ready. He grew confident, thinking he was ready for anything. Then one summer, lightning struck. This fire was fast, fierce, and fueled by the wind. The man put his plans into action, spraying water, building barriers. But each time he thought he had it contained, the fire shifted. The harder he tried, the stronger it seemed to grow, moving beyond his reach. Exhausted and surrounded by smoke, he realized something. His struggle to control the fire had only fueled its power. This story captures a paradox we all face. We try to control what matters most, believing it will protect us from loss and uncertainty. But often our grip only brings more struggle and frustration. So why do we crave control? Why does it lead us into cycles of stress? And why is letting go so hard? We'll explore the paradox of control, how it shapes us, and what happens when we embrace a different approach. Through insights from Stoicism, psychology, and real-life stories, we'll see why true freedom lies in letting life unfold. The man fighting the fire reminds us that control often grows from fear of losing what we value. Control begins with a desire to protect what we've worked for, what we love, and what we depend on. When we invest our time, energy, or emotions, we naturally want to preserve them. But attachment can feed a need to control, turning what once gave us joy into a source of tension. Consider a man named Elias, who opened a small coffee shop out of his love for coffee and community. He poured everything into it, his time, energy, attention to detail. The shop was more than a business. It became his pride and purpose. As it grew, Elias's need for control grew too. If a barista made a small mistake, he corrected it himself. If a chair was out of place, he'd rearrange it. Over time, his presence became stifling. His staff felt the tension, and customers sensed it too. The warmth that once defined the shop began to fade, replaced by his relentless grip. In the end, Elias lost the very atmosphere he loved. His attachment to perfection drove him to micromanage, suffocating what he'd built. His story shows us, the tighter we hold on to something, the more we risk harming it. We're driven to protect what matters most, but sometimes our control causes more harm than good. This drive often has deeper roots, in insecurities we might not even be aware of. Our need for control often starts long before we know it. It's rooted in insecurities from early life, shaping how we see ourselves in the world. When we're young, we depend on those around us for acceptance, for stability. But what happens when that acceptance feels conditional? Or when we're overlooked, caught between expectations, trying to find our place? Take Sam, a middle child in a big, busy family. As a kid, he felt invisible, too old for the attention his younger siblings received, too young to relate to the older ones. His parents loved him, but they were busy, and he often felt he had to prove his worth. Every overlooked moment left a mark, shaping his sense of self. Growing up, Sam took on a new role to avoid those feelings of rejection. He became the one who was always prepared, always striving. He triple-checked his work, avoided mistakes, and tried to keep everyone around him happy. At work, he would go above and beyond, fearing that any mistake would make him invisible again. Sam's need for control wasn't about perfection, it was about self-worth. His childhood taught him that to be seen, he had to measure up. Control became his shield against the insecurity he'd carried since he was small. But the more he held on, the more he felt trapped by expectations he'd set for himself. Sam's story shows how our need for control often grows from unhealed wounds. These early experiences shape how we approach life and how we cling to control. We believe that by controlling every detail, we'll be safe from pain we've known before. But recognizing these patterns is the first step. Realizing that control isn't always a solution, but a reaction can help us start to loosen our grip. It allows us to build a life shaped not by fear, but by a resilient sense of self. Understanding where control begins, fear of loss and early insecurities, helps us see its effects. Once the need for control takes root, it shows up in our actions, often in subtle and powerful ways. Control doesn't just live in our thoughts. It spills over into behaviors that can be hard to change. For some, it appears as rigidity, needing everything just so, on schedule, with no room for change. For others, it turns into compulsiveness, checking every detail, planning endlessly. Sometimes control even takes a darker turn, becoming paranoia or a need to manipulate others to feel secure. Consider Anna, a mother who grew up in a chaotic household. Her own childhood was filled with instability, so as a mother, she became determined to ensure her children never felt the same. She scheduled every moment, from meals to play dates, hovering over them, micromanaging each move. For Anna, control felt like love and protection. But as her children grew, they began to feel trapped by her constant oversight. They pushed back, wanting to make their own choices. For Anna, this independence felt like a threat to the order she'd created. The more she tried to control, the more her children pulled away. Anna's story shows how control can become a cycle where fear and love become tangled. Her behaviors, constant supervision, rigid routines, and her insistence on control distanced her from the family she hoped to protect. Control behaviors like Anna's don't come from strength, they come from deep-seated insecurity. They are reactions driven by a need to feel safe. Ironically, what we control most rigidly is often what we lose, as the things we hold tight start to slip away. When we see these patterns in our lives, we can begin to understand that control isn't always the solution we think it is. It can be a reflex, a way to shield ourselves from deeper fears. But recognizing these behaviors for what they are opens the possibility to let go and trust that we can face life with less control, and perhaps with more peace. Understanding why we crave control is one thing, but learning to release it is another. Buddhism and Stoicism both teach that real peace lies in acceptance, not control. In Buddhism, attachment is the root of suffering. Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha, learned this firsthand. Born into wealth, he was shielded from suffering. But when he encountered poverty, sickness, and death, he set out to control suffering through strict discipline. Yet after years of deprivation, he realized his approach only brought more suffering. Only by embracing the middle way, a path beyond extremes, did he find peace. His journey reminds us that inner peace doesn't come from control, but from letting go. Stoicism offers a similar perspective. Epictetus taught that while we can't control external events, we can control our responses. King Canute, a medieval English king, offered a lesson in this wisdom. When his courtiers claimed he could command the seas, he ordered the tides to stop. Of course, the waves continued, teaching his followers humility. No authority can control nature's forces. Even kings must respect life's limits, accepting what they cannot change. Both teachings reveal that true strength doesn't come from controlling life, but from aligning with its flow. This freedom opens the door to resilience and peace. To let go of control, we need tools that help us stay grounded. Mindfulness, with its focus on the present, teaches us to experience life moment by moment without judgment. When we step out of planning and prediction, we connect deeply with what is. In a world of distractions, mindfulness gives us space to observe rather than react. Consider a mountain climber caught in a sudden storm. Instead of fighting the wind and rain, he pauses, grounding himself in steady breaths. With each breath, he observes his surroundings, the ground, his footing, the wind's movement. He doesn't try to control the storm. He simply adapts, choosing each step carefully, working with the mountain rather than against it. In the same way, mindfulness teaches us to release control by rooting us in the present. Practicing it gradually reduces our need to anticipate every outcome, helping us find resilience and peace as life unfolds. Letting go of control isn't about surrender, it's about building resilience. Real resilience means adapting to life's twists rather than resisting them. Acceptance becomes a conscious choice, a shift from rigid control to flexible strength. Think of an experienced sailor out on open water. He knows he can't control the wind or waves. Instead, he adjusts his sails, working with the sea's flow. Each storm he faces, he navigates not by fighting it, but by moving with it. This is the essence of resilience, adapting without breaking. Acceptance doesn't mean abandoning our goals. It means finding courage to face life's uncertainties with calm and flexibility. Accepting reality opens the door to a resilient way of living, rooted in presence rather than control. Letting go of control doesn't happen overnight. It requires reshaping our thoughts. By replacing control-driven patterns with positive affirmations and visualization, we can shift towards acceptance and adaptability. Imagine facing an uncertain situation. Instead of fixating on outcomes, you use affirmations like, "I am resilient," or "I can adapt to any challenge." Visualizing yourself calmly navigating challenges builds confidence and prepares you to handle life's surprises. This isn't about pretending life is perfect. It's about creating mental flexibility. Practicing constructive thought patterns helps our minds adjust, enabling us to face uncertainty with strength and focus on what we can control, our responses. Letting go isn't just a mindset, it's a practice. Here are simple, real-life actions to help make the shift. Start small. Begin by releasing control over minor things. Let someone else choose the restaurant or leave a small mess unaddressed. These small shifts build comfort with letting go. Name the need for control. When stress rises, ask yourself, what am I trying to control here? Identifying it can calm anxious thoughts and help you release unnecessary tension. Gratitude check-in. Each morning, list 3 things you're thankful for. This practice trains the mind to focus on what you have now, breaking the grip of what-if thinking and reducing anxiety about the future. Set control-free zones. Dedicate specific moments to embrace acceptance. For example, while having your morning coffee, remind yourself, today, I'll let things unfold naturally. Pause for breath. When feeling overwhelmed, stop and take 5 deep breaths. This simple act can reset a control-driven mindset and give you space to respond thoughtfully. Affirm flexibility. Use affirmations like, "I can handle uncertainty," or "I am resilient." Saying these aloud or writing them down reinforces that you don't need control to feel secure. Respond, don't react. When faced with unexpected stress, pause and ask, what part of this can I influence? This reframes your approach, guiding you from reaction to mindful, calm response. Together, these steps guide us toward greater resilience, helping us release control and embrace life as it unfolds with confidence and peace. The paradox of control is this: the harder we cling, the more we suffer. Trying to mold life into exact shapes only traps us, making us vulnerable to forces we can't predict. Real freedom lies in accepting what we can't control, flowing with change rather than resisting it. It's a lesson from Stoics, Buddhists, and countless lives lived before us. Embracing this mindset isn't easy, but it brings a peace that control never will. The more we release the grip, the stronger, calmer, and more resilient we become. And in that surrender, we find not weakness, but strength. We find freedom. Understanding the limits of control can set you free, but are there deeper mindsets silently eroding your happiness? In the next video, we'll dive into the toxic beliefs that could be destroying your life from within. Don't miss it. If this journey into the paradox of control resonated with you, consider subscribing, sharing your thoughts below, and giving the video a thumbs up. Let's keep exploring these timeless ideas together. Thanks for watching.